Alrighty, thanks everybody. Really excited to be here with you all today. My name's Ben Pruden, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about how we're seeing our customers turn data into a strategic asset in the financial services industry. But before I go into the contents, let me jump forward to a little bit more about ourselves as the speakers. As I mentioned, I'm Ben. I work in our industry solutions and value team, and I'm joined with Michael Down. Michael Down's a senior principal solution architect focused on the financial services industry. So I want to start off this conversation by looking at how our way of living and working has changed. It's really kind of changed with computers over the last several decades, whether it was mainframes back in the 1970s, PCs and everybody having a computer in their home in the 1980s, becoming millions of different connections. Internet in the 1990s, finally, we were all able to search and find across massive amounts of info that we all are able to share collectively. In the 2000s, it was all about social networks and the ability for us to connect to all of each other from anywhere. And then mobile really allowed us to do that in the form factor that just fits into our pocket and the little supercomputer that we carry around with us every day. And now in the world of smart industries, really every industry has become smart, connected, and context aware. So this is driving a massive shift in every industry. And if you talk to the business leaders that we would meet with on a regular basis, the questions that we get on frequently are, how do I leverage and monetize my 5G network and telecommunications? Or how do I drive optimal performance for new digital services in that network? And how do I leverage the power of data to enter an autonomous vehicle market? Or how in financial services do I transform risk and fraud and anti-money laundering to reduce the risk and ensure the security of the services that I'm offering in that industry? Or for healthcare, how do I shift to a digital and remote healthcare environment that we've all had to go to in the post-COVID or during the COVID era? Drilling into financial services specifically, digital and COVID have really combined to accelerate the speed of change. Next to retail, financial services experienced really a greater level of change than almost any other industry. We know that customer expectations are escalating because every experience they get is that a customer gets or a consumer gets needs to be the best in class of that category. Not just from the category of financial services, but in comparison to all the other technologies that you use in the world. We know that new entrants are coming into and delivering on new business models that are really changing the game in the financial services industry. And because of that, everyone is in the war for talent, technology talent, business talent, and customer experience talent. So if you look a little bit, beneath the covers, we know that client expectations are really shifting, and new consumers, in particular younger generations, are ready to switch to whomever in the industry delivers the best experience. According to a recent survey from the financial brand, Generation Z's folks are saying they're excited about having their financial services from Google, Amazon, Facebook, or Apple. And similarly, those same Gen Zs saying they believe that they will not need to rely on banks in the future. But in addition to that, it's not just Gen Zs, but generally anybody over the last year and a half have said that they don't really have loyalty to anyone. 22% of banking clients overall are extremely likely or very likely to switch their primary financial institutions. And there's no guarantee that once they switch, they're going to stay with a traditional bank. And how is that possible? Well, in fintech in particular, the new entrants that are in there are really unbundling the banking experience, and they're really having a meaningful impact on the revenue of universal traditional banks, whether it's in consumer payments, investment banking, consumer deposits, SMB lending, and business and credit cards. All across the spectrum of services that a traditional bank provides are really getting attacked at every angle by all sorts of new entrants that are looking at how to create a better, more valuable experience for the users that they're targeting. This quote from The Economist really brings that change home. The cloud of a non-bank financial firm is growing, making the balance sheets that banks use to support lending less valuable. And tech giants are using the competitive power of their platform to muscle banks into banks' main business. It's as if the entire industry were in a pincer grip that might one day kill it. That's from a 2021 How FinTech Will Eat into Banks' Businesses report. So how do you deal with that? And what we're hearing from our largest customers is that talent is really the key to remaining relevant. Banks are facing that fierce competition for technology, banking, and customer services talent, and the talent and the people are really what is going to make this possible. So, 48% of banking CEOs are saying they find it difficult to recruit people with the skills they need to stay competitive. And I love these two quotes, one from Kathy Besant from Bank of America. The cost of poor service is huge. There's a complete zero tolerance for it. It's all over social media. Confident, competent people are the only thing that can deliver on flawless execution. And Lori Beer really brings it home in terms of not just customer experience, but also IT and banking talent. The top thing I spent my day thinking about is the talent I need to help expand the organization of this scale. We're in one of the hottest tech markets that I've ever seen in terms of attraction of talent, and COVID has really accelerated that. So to stay competitive in financial services and banking, we see really kind of three core capabilities that our customers are really focused on. One, user experience, delivering simple, powerful, and compelling user experiences to customers, clients, and employees. Speed, scale, and agility, and retaining the advantages of scale while becoming fast and agile enough to capture new market opportunities. And then, of course, it's incumbent upon every financial institution to deliver a secure and stable environment. And because operating and growing in a global organization requires a platform that ensures banks can retain and maintain customer trust. And the cost of slow response is really quite high. BCG reports that there's 300 million in potential revenue opportunity for every 100 billion in assets under management for large banks. So personalization is really critical to drive revenue and market share. And if you don't act fast, the Plan View Strategy Execution Benchmark Study shows that 43% of organizations that don't act quickly see a decline in growth through failure to execute with speed. And then lastly, the BAE Systems COVID Crime Index report shows that over the last 18 months, there's been a 74% spike in security and fraud threats linked to digital activity through the COVID-19 pandemic, really highlighting the importance of scale and security and acting flexibly. So what are leading financial institutions doing? They're really becoming data-driven. They deliver next-generation digital experiences that really connect the dots and create personalized experiences for their customers. They execute faster and they outmaneuver their new entrants and legacy incumbents by having greater visibility into the data across their ecosystem. And then they create really stable and secure experiences through next generation fraud and security detection. If you think of a great example of a company that's already done this in the industry, I think of Capital One. They've made data central to everything that they do for over 2 decades now, and are really sailing through this shift in the front of the pack. So how can Elastic help? Well, Elastic is really here to help you in the financial industry turn your data into a strategic asset. With enterprise search, we can help you deliver on those next generation digital experiences. With observability, we can enable you to have data-driven conversations across your development and IT organizations so you can execute faster. And then lastly, with our security solutions, you can create those stable and secure experiences. And all of those capabilities are built on top of the Elasticsearch platform that really gives you great degree of flexibility and maneuverability to move with your market as you need to. And you can deploy it anywhere, on cloud, in a hybrid environment, or on premises. So you don't have to just take it from me. Here's some of our customer results that we're seeing. 33% improvement in IT labor efficiency, 6.25% improvement in productivity and developer productivity, and then 8.675% improvement in IT and software efficiency. Or in the security side of things, 30% reduction in data breach and risk, or 18% improvement in security operations costs. So the Elastic platform is really for everyone across every industry, whether it's technology or in financial services like we talked about today, or telco or public sector. We've got clients across every industry and every institution. So let's just wrap up by a little bit more about our solutions and how they provide really next generation solutions. With enterprise search, You can empower your customers and employees to find the right content for life and for work, enable every customer and user with personalized recommendations and content, and extend every application with website with powerful, relevant search experiences. From InfoTrack, they've seen 15% expansion in new customers year over year since the use of Elastic Enterprise Search, and a 10% increase in their NPS scores, really showing how exactly they've seen gains from Elastic. For our observability capabilities, you can manage and optimize every customer experience. You can modernize your applications and infrastructure with complete visibility, built-in machine learning, and offload data from legacy systems of record to create systems of engagement. At Intel, we've seen an 80% reduction in MTTR and a 95% improvement in visibility into company operations. And then lastly, PSCU, one of the largest credit unions with our security solution, is able to reduce their threat dwell times and minimize damage from security and fraud risk, remediate every threat faster, regardless of its complexity, and inform their teams with response-optimized high-fidelity detections and investigations. PSCU has seen 99% reduction in mean time to knowledge and 35 million reduction in fraud in the last 18 months. So I'll just close out before we wrap up with pass it over to our demo with Rabobank, who's really enhancing their online banking experience with Elasticsearch. They've never missed an incident. They chose Elastic because of its resilience, and they've built a really powerful mainframe offloading solution that allows them to search through financial data in real time and increase the amount of transaction history data available to consumers and to customers, as well as to bank employees. And they've seen faster search capabilities, search improve for all their customers, and they're saving millions of dollars every day or every year and day on mainframe costs. So I love this quote, and I'll wrap it up with this quote. The speed of Elastic is really impressive, according to all the users they ask, including myself. Some technical people even double check the results because they can't even believe it's true, that fast and that accurate. So that's everything that I wanted to share today. I'm now going to pass it over to Michael Down, our Senior Principal Solution Architect, who's going to walk you through a really powerful demo about how our customers in the banking industry are building transaction search and analytics applications with Elastic.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. As we touched on, I'm going to walk you through now a quick demo, which will kind of deep dive into how we can take, for example, transactional data, correlate that and look at that in dashboards inside of the Elastic Stack. So as I kind of introduced myself earlier, my name is Michael Down, and I specialize in financial services at Elastic. Now, one of the thing about my role is that I go more into the business use cases, in addition to kind of working with organizations to deploy our observability, our security, and our enterprise search solutions. But I also dive into more regulatory use cases, right? Whether that be inside the investment bank around MiFID II, Basel III, CSDR, which is a big one that we've just been working with the likes of Deutsche Bank, or more in the retail banking side, which is around PSD2 and the kind of transactional data stores. Now, one of the things that, from an Elastic perspective, Elastic is a great tool to be able to use in both kind of monitoring your log files and infrastructure, et cetera, from both the metrics and the log side. But as you start to realize the flexibility and the speed and performance of Elastic, people and organizations start to think, wow, okay, I can do more than just store my logs. And this is where we see now, when we're talking about PSD2, which is what this demo is around transactional data. When you think about the requirement that PSD2 as a regulation is putting on the banks, this is where the kind of the use and need and requirement for a newer modern data store comes into play. Because when you're opening up these APIs for any customer to access their data, and what they're wanting are more innovative, more modern methods of querying, visualizing, understanding their behavior, then you're going to need a data store that is specialized in that type of query performance. So where you've got the relational databases, your mainframes, your oracles, etc., which obviously have a place because of their ACID compliant nature. But when you're thinking about that kind of next generation, interface to the customer, you need more than just those databases. You're going to need something else that's going to be able to do geospatial, at the same time do incredible aggregations and kind of slicing and dicing, whilst doing fuzzy searching to look for different things, all in the blink of an eye. right? And that's where the Elastic Stack kind of sets itself above, which is we can scale, as you're going to see in my demo. I've got 156 million transactions, but we've been doing the same use case with 30 billion transactions plus. And the only difference is they just add a few more nodes to the cluster, right? So you're getting the same queries, the same amazing response time on larger data sets. Now, when you look at some of the other cool, interesting things we've been doing around how we store that data, this can then drive the cost down. So whereas before people were putting data in Elasticsearch for a year, with the ability to use more kind of tiered, cheaper storage, 7 years, not a problem, right? And it doesn't kind of blow the budget because you're keeping it in a place that is relative to the value you see in the data. And I'm sure there'll be many kind of presentations around that because it's an incredible feature that, again, sets us apart from many kind of other data stores and databases that don't allow this flexibility. Anyway, I'm going to dig straight into it. I think I've talked enough. I'm going to dive and I'm going to show you now what this demo looks like. So in this demo, you need to think about what we've kind of tried to articulate here is the ability to view this data in multiple different ways. So before joining Elastic, I used to work for Barclays. And during my time there, I kind of went around the bank to implement a number of different solutions and requirements using Elastic. And I remember vividly one conversation we had, and I'm sure many of you out there have had that same conversation with your organizations, which is, how can I get more value, monetary value? How can I provide more services which you can either pay for or attract new customers? How can I do that in a way that unlocks the value of my data? I can hear and I can see Google doing this, but how do I do this at Barclays, at Wells, at RBC, Westpac, you name it, right? How do you unlock the value of that data? And part of that is putting that data in a place where you can pivot, slice and dice it very quickly. So you can build new products, you can innovate on top of that data, and you have a product that can be flexible with you as your requirements, as your customers, needs and wants change. You just know the data store like Elastic is just always going to be there with you. So from this standpoint, what I want to think, I want you pretend to put your kind of mind and your kind of persona. You are working at a bank and you're wanting to understand, what do our customers do at a global level, like the 30,000 foot view of what do our customers do. So here you can see that we are storing just over 156 million transactions for just over 10,000 customers, with an average transaction value of just over $800. Now, one thing I want to kind of get to quickly is some of these numbers may look, quite incredible, and that's because although the data structure is very similar to obviously what we're seeing with, the likes of the organizations looking at Elastic as a transactional data store, the data itself, you're probably not surprised to understand, isn't real. So which is why some of these values, like the average transactional value, considering now we've got contactless, which is driving the transaction value down but increasing the transaction volume, this may look a bit strange. So you can see here, but this again is an aggregation. We're aggregating over 156 million records at incredible speeds. And I'm going to show you what I mean by incredible speeds. So here we've got the wealth of customers, right, which is listing out the top customers. Here we've got the top 10 customers that spend money. And here you can see that this customer here in this time frame has spent just over $1.4 million, right? Now we're being able to slice and dice this data in a way that is allowing us to kind of visualize all these different things, right? The 156 million transactions, the top end customers, right? How much they spend. But all I've got to do to basically filter, click on that button, and we're going to filter very quickly down from 156 million transactions down to the 15,000 transactions for this one customer, right? Which is quite incredible when you think about, the data. Now, the other thing that's quite amazing is when you're doing this and you're visualizing all of this, when you've got more data, 30,000, 30 billion transactions plus, like we have with some customers, in order to get to that similar speed, you just add a few more nodes, scale horizontally. It's the joys of distributed systems. So here you can see what we're doing is we're slicing data in a few different ways. The first one, if you look at this kind of top row here, is all about the customers. How much do they spend? Where are the top merchants they spend with? So here you can see they're spending, of that 156 million transactions, if you add them up, $2.5 billion are being spent with Amazon. Right? And these are all the transactions that we know we can see. Another side flip of the coin with the Elastic Stack is that we've got this amazing machine learning engine, right, to understand what is normal and what is abnormal. So we've been running that over this data set to look at what is normal from a perspective of combining the number of transactions that I, as a customer, would create versus the value of that transaction. So do I normally spend 10,000, 20,000 at Amazon, or do I normally spend 100, 200 at Amazon? Right? Do I normally put through lots of little transactions, or do I put smaller numbers of transactions but a bigger value? This is where the anomaly detection can kind of really kick in and start to look at what is defined as an unusual transaction and flag that. So here you'll notice we've got this account ID. Think of that as like a customer, like myself, Michael. You could have the customer name, you could have the customer ID, depending on security and a number of factors. And so here we've got the top customers who are the most, unusual, potentially fraudulent. We've now got different way of spinning that data is which merchants do we see the most fraudulent transactions going against. And then we've got your usual, the amount you spend over time, kind of, and also the number of transactions that are happening. So during this week here, we've spent, 689 million with a total number of transactions of just over 827,000, right? And then we can compare that. Now you'll see this again is pretty uniform because of the data set that we've got. We've also got down here is different ways of looking at kind of incoming. So where do people get their money from? And also where do people spend their money, right? So you've got the spending of where they spend it, and then obviously where that money is coming from, jobs, etc., and salaries. Now, one of the great things that we can do, we talk about, is being able to spin. I've talked about pivoting on this data. Well, what happens if I'm customer facing, I'm building an application, and I want to provide a customer with a next generation experience, AKA advanced analytics. I want to be able to tell them where they spend their money. I want to tell them how they compare against their peers, what it may look like. Well, how about we now pivot and we spin and we look at an account view. What do you do? This person, Eric, who sits in a certain age bracket of a certain occupation with a certain salary bracket, does a certain thing. How do you compare to your peers? Of the same age range and the same salary bracket, what do you look and what do you do? Right, and this is where we can then start getting into basically splitting down and reviewing those transactions at a quite granular level and being able to pivot and spin. So again, we can see the number of unusual transactions, 23. We can see where those unusual transactions are coming from. Where do you spend your money? Or where are you receiving your money? And also then looking at it from different breakdowns. Which days of the week do you spend the most money? In all these different ways. And we can also show you, because you can obviously start going down and filtering and searching. We can show you then the raw transactions that make up that bucket. So you've got all of that data on one kind of panel. And what you can do, and what we find a lot of people doing, is they use Kibana as that kind of first level view of that data. How do I start to look at it, understand it? But you may or you may not, some customers do, provide Kibana as that interface to the customer. We find other people are using, their applications, like their banking apps, and they're embedding this view, this access to Elastic directly in there. So they get the normal experience they used to. They log into their, their mobile app to whichever bank you bank with. But you now provide all these different experiences where you spend your money, analytical breakdown, fraudulent, geospatial queries, right? All of those are rendered in the application. But all you're doing is you're talking to Elastic, which stores and powers that data. So we've kind of had the bank view. What am all of my customers doing? You've now had the customer view, the client view. Now, another one that's really interesting was spinning that and looking at the merchant view. So here now I can look and I can say, okay, well, I am now Amazon and I bank with, whichever bank I bank with. And I want to see how things are performing. I want to look at the breakdown that the bank can provide me. And there's one South African bank who did this, they call it the Merchant Portal, where they built a whole tool set and a whole suite of kind of tooling around the merchants. And so they gave them the capability of providing an additional add-on service to their kind of offering for kind of corporates. So it was like come and bank with us, you get, point of sale terminals, you get, client managers, etc. And we'll also give you this insight analytical tool called the Merchant Portal. And so this has a very similar kind of data set, but pivot in a different way. So now you're looking at, the occupations of the people that spend money, the age ranges of the people that spend money, the salaries of the people that spend money. So the organizations can use those to tailor their service, to tailor their marketing, to even tailor the locations they place stores, which is a really interesting idea and way of looking at this. So I'm going to leave it there because there's a lot we can cover, and you can see there's only scratching the surface. And if there's any kind of conversations or anything you'd like to kind of dig into more, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you and have kind of deeper discussions around this, because we feel, and I feel, that Elastic is an amazing technology to help any organization to take that understanding and analytic of data that they need for applications or internal to that next level. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying Elasticon, and I'm sure there are many more interesting talks for you to get involved in. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day.
Well, that was awesome. Really grateful. Thank you, Michael, for sharing that presentation and that demo. Hopefully everybody gets a sense for the art of the possible. I encourage you all to stay in touch and get in touch with us at elastic.co/industries/financial services, or be in touch at financials.elastic.co. Thanks, everybody.